Hello and welcome to another edition of DK and Gray. My name's Dave Kennedy and joining me as always is Mr. Gray Morris from NT News. Gray, it was an interesting weekend, a couple of upsets there.
It was, David. There were some upsets. Of course, the Tiwi Bombers came to town thinking they'd roll over Waratahs very nicely and go into the finals. That didn't happen. Waratahs reversed their very ordinary form the last month and won easily. And of course, the next game we saw Palmerston come out and annihilate an undermanned Wanderers that I think had league experience of about 5 games. They were very, very ordinary outside.
They certainly were ordinary, and Palmerston all the same impressive. They take on Nightcliff this weekend on Friday night out at Palmerston Oval. How do you see this one unfolding? Palmerston, any chance?
I think they're a chance, David. They're certainly playing some good footy, but gee, Nightcliff, have a look at them. 3 weeks ago they were gone. Everyone thought, it's just another ordinary season for Damien Hale and his coaching staff, and especially after all the complaints about the player point system, of course. But they've come out and they've finished third, and they look like they could even go to the grand final. So all those complaints about player points, I'm sure they'll be speaking behind closed doors and saying the player point system isn't all that bad after all.
Well, many have dubbed the next game as the grand final preview. St Mary's taking on Wanderers at 3:15 here at TIO Stadium. Gray, is it your grand final preview?
Well, up until last week it was, David, but as I said, Wanderers turned up with an F grade side and got annihilated. And really, if I spoke to Paul Motlop about it the next day, he was a bit taken back, Paul, when I rang him and said, "Has this done any harm to your season, Paul?" And as you would have read, of course, in the Sunday Territorian. But I think they can still get to the grand final, but they're certainly going to have to lift their game in terms of who they play.
Is this game a bit of a novelty act in the lead up to the finals? Would you take it seriously as a coach?
Well, I would, because it's probably the side that you're going to have to beat to win the flag. St Mary's obviously going to have to beat Wanderers, and Wanderers are going to have to beat St Mary's if they want to win a flag.
What about if you're coaching? Do you put all your cards on the table, or do you keep things close to heart?
Well, that's an interesting one, because I know Wanderers are. Wanderers are going to bring back Brad Vassell, Christopher Dunn. It just goes on and on. They've got some big names coming back.
I think they need to, obviously, as well after last week. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. Should be an interesting game, that game here at TIO Stadium from 3:15. The next game sees Southern Districts take on the Tiwi Bombers, both teams coming off losses. Both teams less than impressive in recent weeks, Gray.
Tiwi Bombers were terrible last week, David. I watched that game at Gardens Oval and they mucked around with the ball. They ran sideways. They held on to it for far too long. Only a young side, I know, and they're learning, but gee, haven't they gone from front runners to rear enders? And
Southern Districts, not the greatest performance either.
Oh, they were very ordinary in the last half. First half they were competitive, certainly enough, but yeah, dropped right away. St Mary's, gee, they buried them.
What about Districts, Gray? Are they any chance of going deep into the final series?
Well, they can, David. They've certainly got the players there, but it's all about up here with Aussie rules. So football's played between the ears, as I all say, and if they're smart enough and they're good enough, they most certainly will.
Interesting game, that one. In the late game, Waratahs take on Buffaloes here at TIO Stadium from 7:45 p.m. Waratahs, Gray, are they just making up the numbers in the finals?
That's what they're saying, David. They were very good last week, of course, when they beat the Tiwi Bombers, but whether they can beat Southern Districts in the elimination final next week is the question. I don't think they will. I think their season will end as early as next week.
And Buffaloes, well, their season will end after this week. What do you make of season 2013-14 for them?
Well, it's another learning season for the Buffaloes, unfortunately. They did look very good in the first probably 6 to 8 round, but they have dropped right away, as we spoke about last week, and they're certainly going to have to sit down and do some very serious thinking about who's going to be in their side next season.
Well, that concludes the round 18 preview. Some tips from Gray Morris. The first game, Palmerston taking on Nightcliff.
Nightcliff, fairly comfortably.
St Mary's and Wanderers.
St Mary's, fairly easily.
Southern Districts and the Tiwi Bombers.
Districts easily.
And the last game, Waratahs and Buffaloes.
Waratahs very easily.
Well, that's it from us today. We hope you've enjoyed the show. I'm DK.
And I'm Gray.
And this is DK and Gray.
Bonfire!